this archaeology? Get out of there, Dan!
All right. Now we should be live, I think. Oh, hang on. See. Oh. Real tech. Sorry. Everything reprogrammed. Say something again. Oh, wait. Let's try that one. All right. Try it again. Oh. Oh, wait. Try it now. Oh, man. Unfortunately, the one thing that did not work is like the one thing. Oh, wait. Try it now.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Test.
Sorry. Everyone
Alright.
at home, it's a long story, but I just updated OBS Studio, and the one thing I couldn't check is like the one thing obviously it didn't work.
Nice. Well, I heard myself over here on the live stream side, so we're good to go.
Yeah, and I see you. I see you too. It's like There's like
Okay.
8 choices, and I'm like, oh my god! And of course, the one that I needed was at the bottom.
Right. All right. Well, it looks like Amy said she couldn't hear me, but it's delayed a little bit. So hopefully she can hear me now. Then she can. Awesome. Thanks, Amy. All right.
Cool. Oh, hang on. Let me see if I can get chat. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Well, a little bit of a real-time update. So I'm sitting. Well, I guess since we talked last, I am sitting in. Let me turn this down. I
Yeah.
took my headphone out. I'm sitting in our new RV. We bought a new RV a few weeks ago. We traded in the one we've had for the last few weeks. There's nothing wrong with it. It was just fortunate timing with an RV show. And to be honest, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to upgrade on that old RV. It is a 2015, and they were just like everything from the fans to the awnings to little things. But those little things add up because nothing's cheap on an RV. The equipment might be inexpensive, but doing the install and getting it done right and all that stuff is usually pretty expensive. And at some point it becomes more cost prohibitive because you end up doing stuff that's more than the value of the RV itself in some cases, right? So
I mean,
because they are depreciating assets. Even if you put a whole bunch of stuff on them, you're probably not going to get back what you put into it.
that's true. Oh my god, that actually reminds me of a Twitter post I saw this week where someone was someone was on one of those websites where they sell cars, but not just like eBay, but like specifically like 80s and 90s collectors cars.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like reporting all these posts where people are like, I can't set a bid. I can't set my my minimum bid at this because I paid X for it and I need X back. And he's like, yeah, like maybe the car market was working like that 6 months ago or in 2020, but now things are normal and a used car is a used car, even if it's like a collector car.
Yeah. I hear you.
Also, man, like
So,
I know I mentioned it before, but it's like, man, good job on like selling your house before the whole thing started, all the value started tanking.
well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons we were able to get what we got, because the RV we got was much newer and obviously more expensive. It's a diesel RV. They're usually twice as much as gas RVs, about the same length, but a lot wider. But again, with the features and options and stuff, it was definitely more. And using some of that, from the sale of the house and things like that, and it helped out because this is our home. So putting that, a little bit of that money into a new home basically seemed to make a lot of sense. But you're right, selling it when we did, we made a pretty good chunk of change off that house, and obviously we didn't even have to use all of it to buy this, so that was nice. But yeah, it's good. And now we're sitting at the second to the last day of the rainy Albuquerque Balloon Festival. We're in the high desert. You wouldn't think it'd be raining too much, although I know it does get rain down here, but we're in apparently the rainy season because we've been here since Wednesday. So our first day really of the Balloon Festival was Thursday. We're in the last half of it. It's been going for 10 days. It goes since October 1st. And at least we only had one day where it didn't rain. Well, I don't think we've had a day where it didn't rain at all, but we had one morning where it didn't rain. That was yesterday morning. And we had hot air balloons landing literally right in front of our RV in this field that we're parked in front of.
Wait, is it constant raining?
They asked, what's that?
Is it constant raining?
Well, like I said, it hasn't been constantly raining, but it's been raining a lot. And it is just it's crazy. In fact, the whole festivities this morning, everything was canceled because it was raining and windy and stuff like that. So they canceled everything. And we'll see. They have a morning show with all the balloons going up and stuff like that. Then they have an evening show with they have fireworks every night. And last night was crazy because there was just a downpour as they were putting balloons up for this glow show, they call it. This where they just they don't take off, but it's dark and they light them up. Yeah. And but then this massive thunderstorm cell just opened right over the top of the airfield or the launch field where they've got all the balloons and where we're at. It kind of hit us first, so we knew it was coming because we didn't go up there. I looked at the weather and I was like, I don't think so. And but everybody up there, they were getting emergency alerts on their phones and stuff, and shelter in place warnings, and it was just it was crazy for about 30 minutes. And all the balloons came down pretty rapidly, and then they set off all the fireworks while that was going on. They were going to set them off later, but they were like, listen, we can't undo this. You can't undo setting up the fireworks. So we're just going to let them off now in a thunderstorm. So there's like thunder and lightning around and pouring down torrential downpour and fireworks.
Oh man,
It was crazy.
that was way different
Yeah.
than I was picturing. Because I remember when you and I were out at oh god, I always forget the name, but where you drew that profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it was
What
like
was
nice
that?
during
Down
the
the
early part of the
Pancake Ranch by
day,
Eureka.
and then sort of
Yeah.
like, we'd sit there in the nice sunshine waiting for like the thunderstorm warning to end or whatever.
Exactly. So
Ooh, hang on. Let's see.
I'm responding to comments too as we're doing this.
Oh yeah.
So everybody knows. So everybody knows there's a good 30-second delay between Richie and I having this conversation and you hearing it. So if you leave a comment, maybe reference back to something if we're leaving that topic quickly, just so we know what you're talking about, and we can try to stay on top of the comments. So, and we might just try to respond in real time in the comments rather than on the comment thread, because then it's like having two separate conversations. But Amy was saying she was stuck in a flash flood about a week and a half ago, or almost got caught in one.
Yeah.
And or did get caught in one and was trying to camp. Yeah. So any of these desert environments, and especially areas like California has been hit pretty hard with forest fires the last few years when it's been deforested, that water has nowhere to go, and it just like runs off and into canyons and stuff, and causes that flash flooding. So deserts, that happens all the time because there's rock for bedrock and right at the surface, and there's nowhere for the water to go, so it just collects and floods up. So we're in the season for it for sure.
I mean, we both worked at I should name of the mine, but we both worked in wells, and like, and I'm not sure if they were doing this when you were there, but we were issued like lightning radios, and if like I always forget, like red alert or whatever, you basically had to exit the mine.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they don't mess around with that at all. So
Also,
yeah, well, like I said, we're in New Mexico, and we're going to stay in New Mexico for another week after this is over. It's been pretty cool though, because on the way here, when we left Reno at the end of September, last week of September, really, we went over to Great Basin National Park, which we had never been to before. We spent, a decade plus in Nevada and never went to Great Basin National Park, which is, I think, technically, I don't think it's the only national park in Nevada, because I think Lake Mead is like a national recreation area, and part of that lies in Nevada. So, perhaps that technically counts, but I think Great Basin National Park might be the only national park that lies fully within the state of Nevada. Yeah. And it's relatively small. I mean, it's huge, but it's small compared for what you can actually do, right? It really contains Mount Wheeler, which is the tallest mountain in Nevada. Oh. And it contains, the oldest tree in, I want to say, North America or something like that. It's a bristlecone pine, which you can't go see. They protect it, so they don't tell you where it's at.
Oh, really?
But there's just as old bristlecone pines all over the place, because that's like where it's at. But technically the oldest one, like, only a few people know where that's at. There's no hiking trails or anything that go to it. So
well, you just imagine.
But
someone...
it was.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, you can imagine someone like making a TikTok like, "Hey, I'm about to burn down like the world's oldest tree, or I'm gonna hang on it and like put swings on it, and like
Oh yeah, somebody would do something
things.
Stupid to it. Yeah, they'd take a piece of it, something.
I mean, it's just like the shoe tree.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the shoe tree on 50. Well, we saw, and of course, when they knocked that tree down.
Yeah, same here.
There's another one there now. Yeah. So it's been there since the other one was knocked down. So,
but it was just like I drove by like right after it happened. Not like right after, like seconds after, but like it was still freshly down. And we're like, man, like people just we can't have nice things.
Were we on a crew together when that happened? Because I remember seeing it partially down too. I can't remember if we were working together when that happened.
Oh wait, maybe we were heading up the Bullfrog.
I literally don't remember. Yeah, but
I mean, all these projects start running together.
I know the projects and the roads, man. They just start blending into one another. So anyway, yeah. The cool thing is, so after Great Basin, and we did a. We did a little touring around the Great Basin, but we were only there for a handful of days, so I didn't get to do too much there. But we did the Lehman Caves tour, which is a ranger guided tour. You can't go in by yourself. Yeah, that is super, super cool. It's been highly developed because it was privately owned before the national park before the Park Service bought it I mean,
Yeah.
many decades ago, like back in the 30s or 40s. And but now, I mean, it's all like it's a cemented path all the way through these caves
Oh,
and
really?
lighted all the way through. Yeah, and at one point they turn off all the lights so you can see how dark it is in there.
Oh,
And you can see a little bit of the phosphorescence on some of the algae, I guess, that's in there. But or not the algae, but
yeah.
it's a different thing. I can't remember what it was, but they shine like a flashlight on it, like a black light,
Yeah.
and then shut the lights off, and then it retains that phosphorescence a little bit. So,
Oh.
but yeah, but that was really cool. And then from there, we went over to Zion National Park, which we'd
Ooh.
been through,
Yeah.
but have never spent any time at. And we spent 5 days there and did the Narrows hike,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Narrows, but check it out. Just like go on to Instagram or something and
That's
do
like the famous
hashtag the
one, right?
Narrows hike or the Narrows. Yeah, it's right through a slot canyon. And
Yeah.
for probably, well, the first mile is paved, and that's not really the Narrows. It's just like getting to the Narrows, right? It's still in
Yeah.
a pretty tight canyon following the river, but you're like on this paved path. And that's what
Yeah.
a lot of people do that just don't want to deal with it. And
Oh, really?
at that point, though, you get off and you get basically into the river. And for the next however far you want to go, we turned around after that first mile. I think we went another 2.5 to 3 miles
Yeah.
up the river, and we turned around because there's no real good turnaround point. It's not like you're walking to a waterfall or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like go as far as you want and then turn around. And it was getting later in the day, and it looked like some clouds, and we didn't want to get caught in a flash flood, literally hiking in a river
Wow.
like the day before, which the skies just opened up the afternoon before. So, but anyway, for probably, I don't know, 70-80% of the hike after that,
Yeah.
you're in the river in ankle to knee to thigh high deep water. And that was in the end of September, early October.
Yeah.
And earlier in the year, of course, there'd be a lot more water in there than it would be, and that water's moving pretty good in some places too. You really gotta have your hiking sticks and your
Ooh.
trekking poles and just use them for stability and walk slowly across the rocks. But yeah, it was fun.
Because God, I've worked near there. It's like one of those things where you always tell people like, yeah, I've driven by there. Like I've driven by Yellowstone a bunch of times. I've never been inside.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's odd to drive by Yellowstone. I feel like, man,
Yeah.
it's like there's very few roads that go near Yellowstone without going through it.
Well, you'd be surprised because whenever I'm heading to the Midwest, that's usually like my route just takes me through that part of Wyoming, basically.
Yeah. Well, we did a job down in Kanab, Utah, which actually isn't that far from the western entrance of Zion.
Yeah.
And it's maybe an hour, give or take, I think, from Zion itself. And we were down in Kanab working on a camping project, and we were I don't think we were camping down there. We were camping a little near there, but in part of the Kanab project, we were actually in hotels as well.
Yeah.
In Kanab. So there was a couple different projects going on.
Because I've done that too. Except my project was considerably worse in terms of camping.
Ours wasn't bad. It was catered with a chef. And so they did all our meals, and they had showers with like a huge water truck and pumps going into the showers. And it was pretty well done. It was with Montgomery Archaeological Consultants out of Moab.
Yeah, who are now under new ownership. Compared to
they are indeed. Yeah. Which is good because while I appreciated what the old owners did, we definitely had some differences, but I like the new guys.
I mean, when I was in Kanab, we were like camping so close to town that everyone just drove into town for dinner. And it was one of those projects where, I probably talked about it before, but where our field director was rationing ice because he wanted to quote unquote save the company money. And I'm like, dude, that is, that's not good project management.
You talking about that. Yeah. Amy asked, what is the tour called? I think she's talking about the Lehman Caves tour that we did. It's literally just called the Lehman Caves tour. You have to, there's only 20 people maximum per tour. And I think they do a couple of them a day. And there's a shorter one and a longer one. We did the longer one. Ooh. And so it's several times a day that they do it, but they do sell out pretty quickly. And you have to, I can't remember. Like a lot of these national park things, you can get some tickets in advance, but there's also some that they leave for like the day before. You basically enter into a lottery.
Yeah.
And this one is, you still have to pay for it, but it's only like a couple bucks, I think, if that, to get the ticket. But it's just getting in line and getting your slot. That's the hard part. So this time of year, probably not that big a deal. But you try to go over the summer, and you're unlikely to probably get it unless you plan ahead. So
I mean, I mean, it's interesting because I remember a friend of mine when he was between jobs trying to decide whether to become a biologist or an archaeologist. He eventually became
Right.
a biologist, by the way. But yeah, he was giving tours in Sequoia National Forest, or no,
Okay.
Sequoia National Park, in something called the Crystal Caves, which just sounds exactly like the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard of those before too. Yeah, I've been to Sequoia, but I never did that tour. So,
Neither did I.
well, speaking of caves, we are
Yeah.
headed from here on Monday down to Carlsbad, New Mexico, and I've heard that the Carlsbad Cavern Cave is similar to the Lehman Caves tour in Great Basin National Park.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's bigger or better or smaller or worse, but it sounds like it's similar as far as the geology goes. So, looking forward to that. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong, but have you worked in New Mexico before?
Yes. So that was one of our first southwestern technically projects. When we worked when we were working our way across the country, and we were on that. Oh, so crappy. I mean, not crappy because of the company, we're fine, but that crappy, like super cold, where 5 degrees was like the high every day in February. This pipeline in Ohio. Oh my God, it was so terrible. So, like the minute we got there, we were just applying for other jobs, but it
Wait,
was
was it the
February and there wasn't much open.
is that the famous one that, people used to talk about? Like, were you on this, on the Rex?
Well, it was the Rex East pipeline. Yeah, totally. And it was the phase two portion of it. So they had sites that were identified on survey, and we were going out to those sites and digging 50 by 50 shovel tests on a 5 meter grid, basically. And I mean, it was literally all day to go down 10, 15 centimeters because it was rock solid frozen not chert.
Ground.
Yeah. What am I trying to say? Like clay, clay ground. And it was just super, super bad. It was so bad.
See,
But anyway, so we were trying to apply for stuff,
yeah.
and we got this job in New Mexico, and it was actually between like Grants, New Mexico, and Grants is a couple hours to the west of Albuquerque.
Oh.
But it was between like Grants and Chaco Canyon, and we were staying at a ranch house up there.
Yeah.
And like we were only an hour. I don't know. It felt like about an hour, maybe a little more from the entrance to Chaco Canyon, and we went up there at least one time and spent a few times, I think, and spent some time up there. So. Yeah,
I
that
was
was
gonna
cool.
say you were lucky. You were like on the because that sounds your experience on the Rex East sounds exactly like my experience on the Ruby Pipeline. Since you were on the survey portion and I was on the digging around portion.
Yeah. Yeah, I was down the survey portion of the Ruby, but not the phase two portion.
And it was also 5 degrees for us. And it's amazing the stuff you think about or you come up with when you're doing that. Like, the ground would literally just come up as these big frozen chunks, and what we did was we got these plywood boards and we just throw them on there and then wait for like the sun to melt them enough for us to like
God.
try to push them to the screen.
Yeah. That's nuts.
I mean, I feel like those sorts of projects are like not happening anymore.
Well, I think there was definitely the slowdown in those big infrastructure projects over the course of COVID, as we're coming out of that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing about huge pipeline projects like that is they don't need very many of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not going to come around every year.
That's true.
Once they get it in, it's done, so then it's like, where else are we going to bring this? So, but like that, I'd heard a number on Ruby one time that was a $3 billion project.
Yeah.
Overall. And I don't know if that was an estimate at that time and if it hit that target, but either way, even if it's over or under that, I mean, that is just a massive amount of money to bring together. So
yeah.
they don't do those every year.
But
so.
It makes me wonder, like, because that was obviously like years ago, both those projects. It makes me wonder how many people now would put up with the sorts of conditions you had out there during those days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, archaeologists are still archaeologists, everybody needs a paycheck. So I think regardless of the conditions, they're going to go do it,
Yeah, but would they have to pay out a lot more money? No.
Yeah, well, it might cost more. Yeah, that's for sure. So
also, I mean, I wonder how many children came out of that named Ruby.
At least one.
I know.
Well, I wonder if any came out named Rex off the other one.
Ooh, oh, man, I feel like that'd be cooler.
Yeah, exactly. So, Oh man.
I've been fascinated looking because obviously this is the first time Chris and I have live streamed since you got the new RV, and I'm like, what am I looking at
Hmm.
behind you? Like, what's all this dark paneling? Like, some of it looks fancy.
So yeah, well, this RV is definitely fancier, but this is the ceiling right here. There's
Yeah.
actually a strip, kind of a hidden strip of LEDs that go around the
Ooh.
edge here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then that's a light, that's a light, that's a light, and this is an intake for the air conditioner, and there's the outflows on the other side for the forward air
Oh.
conditioner. There's also one. There's also one right up over here by my mic here. But and then these are just overhead cabinets over the couch, and we've got
Yeah.
a full. Rachel's not in here right now. We've got a full couch right here. But the thing about these, and that couch actually folds out into a queen size bed.
Ooh.
So, and we've got a king size bed in the back now rather than a queen, so it's a lot bigger. And we have a washer and dryer, Richie. So yeah, it's crazy. But we yeah, and the other cool thing here, as far as living in something like this goes,
Yeah.
this has two slides in the front, just like our old one did. But these slides, they extend out probably 1.5 feet or more on
Yeah.
either side, more than the other RV did. And that combined with the different layout,
Yeah.
there is just an enormous amount of room in this living room. I mean, like an enormous amount of room.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy how big it is. And the fact that it's a diesel. So since it's a diesel, there's no engine in the front. The engine's in the back, because diesels are always in the back. And that means the door is right in front of the passenger seat here. And there's a cover that electronically comes over, mechanically, I guess, comes over the door, the steps, and comes up while Rachel's sitting there. But that also means there's no huge bulbous engine cover between our seats. It's just tile. So we actually have ceramic tile throughout the whole RV. And the tile, comes all the way up to the cab and up to the front, and you can actually, it's more usable space. So it's really, really cool.
Well, I was gonna say, because I've been telling people that, I feel like the RV you got. I mean, obviously we talked about your RV off stream.
Yeah.
And one of the things I know, one of the things I was thinking about and telling people about is the fact that your, RVs are now being built for people who aren't just like old and retired and waiting to die. They're meant for
Yes.
people who are like, who are like working. Because that's like the workstation, isn't it? You're sitting at.
Yeah. So, and I wish I could show you, but I can't show you easily with this, where my laptop is, because it's sitting on the workstation. But we technically, don't really have a dinette anymore. Where most RVs have some sort of dinette, where it's like the booth style dinette where you get in with a table, right? And often that table comes down, and then you can put the cushions over, and that makes a sleeping area. This has legit like a desk with a raised ledge behind the laptop here, and that raised ledge we can set stuff on, but that's also where the main living room TV comes out of. There's a lift button. It's called a televator, so the TV comes out of here, and we usually leave the TV down during the day because there's a huge beautiful window right here. I'm sitting here looking at a couple of van lifers right now, but normally there's a really nice view out here if we're out boondocking or something, or in a national park. But and then there's a table I can kind of show you. There's a table right here, and this one actually folds down and covers two shelves that are down here, where my Oculus and some other things are sitting on a charger, and that folds down for travel. We can lift it up when the slides are in, but then you can't get by. But if we wanted to like sit facing each other in the two chairs here, I guess we could have a nice little dinner right here. That's kind of our table.
Because I was gonna say you could do live stream,
yeah.
like or a podcast table.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing right now. Like we have done a few podcasts, of course, in here, because we do the Archaeology show. And we have done a few recordings in here, although we've only done one.
Oh, really?
That was news stories with just the two of us, because the other one that we've recorded while we were in here was an interview. And when we're doing interviews, we can't be in the same space because of the way Zencaster works. There's too much mic bleed over, and it just doesn't work because there's a delay in the recording, and you get the headphones on. So Rachel actually goes back in the bedroom when we do a Zencaster interview. But yeah, so anyway,
that's gonna be interesting. Like,
and we can talk.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like you were about to ask this question and then thought better of it, but we can talk about this for a minute. The APN went through a little bit of an issue with the CRM Archaeology podcast a couple of weeks ago. Well, the episode came out a few weeks ago, but just this week, actually this last week, kind of came to a head. And as a response, out of respect for people, we decided to pull an episode of the CRM Archaeology podcast, and then also I'll be the first to admit this. It's a little bit self-serving, but we just decided to take the month off from releasing new episodes while we kind of consider what's going on. And to be honest, that really just helps me out because as one of the primary editors, that's going to get us ahead, because I told all of our people to keep recording. We're just not going to release new episodes. It's going to allow us to do things, like almost like an NPR pledge drive where they turn everything off and they start talking about us, So we're releasing popular episodes of shows on other shows' feeds for this month.
I've been listening to some of them.
Yeah, and you're kind of a power listener, and so because you listen to a lot of our shows. But for people who only subscribe to like one show, I'm hoping to expose them to a new show. So I'm not randomly taking episodes from other shows and putting them on other feeds. I'm trying to do it intelligently. Like yesterday we released an episode of the Archaeology show on the Rock Art podcast feed because one of the articles actually included a discussion about rock art. So it was, I'm trying to do that a little bit more thoughtfully than just randomly releasing episodes on another feed, trying to give something that that audience, I think they might be interested in, but that's like a completely different show. So, and
I saw that too.
Amy's about to go offline. I don't know if she's going offline yet, but she says for TAS or CRM or both. I don't know what that question is referring to, but the issue we had was with CRM.
Yeah.
For all the shows on the network, we're taking the month of October off. So yes, it's for all of those, if that was the question. But like I said, there'll still be episodes. They'll just be past popular episodes of other shows on the same feed.
Oh wait, does that go for the dirt too?
It does. We released an episode for them a day after we decided to do this, only because they had done some advanced planning as far as their audience goes on that. So we didn't want to, and that was the next one to come out, but nothing was coming out until Friday after that. So now people have a little more time to plan for it. And, but yeah, that should be, if all goes to plan, that should be the last one to come out this month, which again, I'm looking forward to because I've already got some episodes edited that are coming out first week in November. And I'm hoping to have the entire month of November edited and posted before November even starts.
Oh,
so
really?
We can stay a month ahead on stuff. Yeah.
Oh man, that's like a long time ago. And I was trying that with, when I was trying that with my YouTube channel. Which hopefully, hopefully we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and I've been thinking, as far as we're doing this in October, which isn't necessarily a great month, but I keep thinking, maybe next year we plan on this anyway, and we do it for like maybe December or something like that, where there's, there's a lot of holidays, depending on what your holiday of choice is. There's a lot of holidays in December. Chances are, regardless of who you are, you celebrate something in December, and there's time off and things like that. And people aren't necessarily listening to podcasts. We do have a slowdown in numbers around that time. I'm thinking maybe we just use that month to give our hosts a break, and they can still record, but they don't have to do anything else, and they can record on their own time. And then we can be prepared to have episodes out in January. But maybe every year we take like the month of December off and we use it to promote other shows on the network and things that we're doing, and maybe do some live events rather than just releasing new podcasts. So I don't know, it's a thought.
It's gonna be interesting because you were doing live versions of the Archaeology show. Are you gonna start doing that again?
Yeah. We might. We only stopped that because it happened to be, we started it right before we went down to Mexico again for 3 weeks. And then we came back and we were in some areas where Starlink wasn't working very well, and it just got inconsistent with being able to do it. But that's getting better. And I know our schedule for the next few months is more conducive to it. So, if we can get ahead on some of this stuff, it might free us up with some more time to do the TAS live shows. Again, it's a lot of work to put something like that together. And when we're doing an episode every week of our show, and then I'm editing, almost everything else with a few exceptions, it's too much of a time commitment. I've also got a full-time job. So, and Rachel works too. And it's a lot. It's a lot to put together. So, but I can say something on the live show front.
Yeah.
One of our other hosts, one of our new hosts, and I can't say too much because there's not much scheduled, but we've been planning for a long time to do somewhat of a quarterly conference, for lack of a better word. It's not a conference, but a quarterly thing similar to what we did a few years ago during COVID, like this mini conference we did.
Yeah.
we've been talking about doing it quarterly, and
Ooh.
we are in the process of doing some planning around that. Again, I don't know when the first one's going to start, but as soon as we have a date and a schedule and a speaker list, then we'll start promoting it out. So it'll be free, of course.
I mean, it's interesting because one of the controversies that came up while we've been off the air is what was it? The
Mm-hmm.
SAA was asking people like, what do you want to see in the conference? Why aren't more people attending? And then people just started piling on them.
Yeah.
And I think one of those things that people kept mentioning is the fact that it cost a lot of money for not much return.
Right. Right.
Especially when other conferences like I follow several YouTube channels. Like there's God, I wish I could remember the name, but there's like a local historic mining association, and they always throw stuff up on Zoom because they're not archaeologists. They're like literally like interested in the history of mines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, even a big conference like the SAA, I mean, a lot of people go there because they're presenting.
Yeah.
And, I would say, I would almost say that most of the people there are there because they're presenting and they're going to other papers and seeing things. But I mean, to be honest, is it worth the $2,000 it's going to cost you to go to one of these conferences in most cases? Is it worth it to go there to just present your research when you could do that pretty much anywhere? You don't have to do it at a conference.
Exactly.
And then maybe see a few other papers, because I think the real benefit is if you happen to see somebody or interact with somebody that leads to maybe a partnership or some other things, but that is such a rare circumstance. I feel like, not that, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of those interactions going on, but leading to something that is fruitful for both of you, I think is the rare part of that. But it's just, for a lot of people, that's just too much money. If your institution's paying for you to go back in the day, and still some people have that, or your company's paying for you to go, then absolutely go, because the ROI is perfect. You paid nothing.
Yeah.
Just go there and enjoy it. But if you're paying everything on your own, it's hard to justify.
More importantly, I feel like at some of the conferences I've attended lately, some of the best presented papers are the ones where they're pre-recorded. And someone made a video and just presented it, and it's super concise, and they're able to integrate
stays
graphics.
on time.
Yeah. They're able to integrate graphics and all sorts of stuff and music. Whereas it's how many times have we been there and there's a student just frightened out of their mind and just have their back turned to the audience and is just reading the slides.
Right. Exactly. So just for the audience, I may have to bail for a minute here in a second. There's again, we're at this balloon fiesta, so it's not like an RV park or anything. We're literally packed in like sardines. But there's a trailer next to us, and the guy is about to pull out. He said he was going to pull out around 11, which is in 15 minutes. And our bedroom slide sticks out a long way, so I already brought that in. So when his trailer swings around, it doesn't smack into the back of our RV, but we may need to go out and provide assistance. So it's a tight exit.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's one other thing I probably should have asked you before. How's the 360? Does your new RV come with 360 cameras and all that sort of stuff?
It doesn't come with 360 cameras, but it does, and it's only missing really one of those in the programming to do it, to be honest, because it's got a whole separate display for cameras, whereas the old one displayed the cameras on the stereo.
Yeah.
And the stereo was garbage to begin with. This one at least has CarPlay and Android Auto, and I can do fun stuff with it. But it's got a whole separate display just for the 3 cameras. And the cool thing is I can look at, and it'll take a 4th camera. We just don't have a front camera. But it will take all 3 cameras, the 2 sides and the back, and put them on one screen, or I can choose one of the cameras to look at. And then of course they're activated by the blinkers as well. If you put on the left turn signal, it goes to the left camera. If you put on the, if you go into reverse, it puts on the rear camera, stuff like that. I always have it on the rear camera just to watch the car, while we're towing it. And, but it doesn't have the 360 display. I feel like that's probably some kind of an add-on that it could do. It just depends on if that unit's capable of it. Like if we put in a 4th camera, could we turn something like that on? I'm honestly not sure, but yeah.
Oh, and before,
I mean, just having the 3 is enough, to be honest.
Well, I mean, that's what people used to say the olden days too, before they, before suddenly, everything had 360 cameras. But more importantly,
that's true.
Thanks for coming, Amy.
Oh yeah, thanks, Amy. Nice to see you or hear from you.
So out of
So
curiosity, when you mentioned you're looking at van lifers, are they nice van lifers? Or are they kind of like the van lifers most people think of? Because I feel like people have this image in their mind of like some junky van by the river, but as opposed to like the 150, 200K Sprinter van.
well, I wouldn't say these are somewhere in between. I would
Yeah.
say the one next to us, I think is a Winnebago. It's
Ooh,
got a slide, which is really cool. There's a little
cool.
half slide right behind the driver's seat that I'm looking at here. And it's a woman. I think she's in there by herself. And
Oh.
she's got an air conditioner on the roof. She's got I think three 200 to 300 watt solar panels on the roof, which is really cool. She's got a pretty sweet little setup here. And it's just windows all the way down. They're all tinted windows. I can see it's really cool. And then the
Wow.
ones next to us, we've gotten to know them pretty well, and they're pretty cool. Their van is a little bit less high tech. There's like no windows on the side at all,
Ooh.
no slides. It's a little more down, I guess, in the list there.
Yeah.
And it looks like something that maybe wasn't even made to be something you live in. It was like a delivery van, more than likely, that's been
Ooh.
modified to be a van that you would live in. They've got solar on the roof as well that they put in themselves. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, we're all parked up. That we're part of this group called the Escapers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's how we came here. And we're all lined up along this big, huge field they call the box, which is where, it's about a mile south of the balloon launch field. And
Yeah.
this is where a lot of like the show balloons and stuff that are weird shapes and stuff that aren't
Ooh.
really for going long travels.
Yeah.
They have different places around the city depending on how the winds are going. And often they're coming to the south here, where they take off, they float for a little bit, and then they come down and they land right here. In
Ah.
fact, I caught one of them yesterday because they,
Yeah.
they asked for assistance. And the guy was coming down right in front of us, like just 50 feet in front of us. And he's like, I appreciate some assistance. And you basically just grab onto the basket when they come down and you hold them. You hold them there as they dump the air out. So that was pretty cool. He gave us all a little pin, the ones that helped him land. But no, anyway, it's kind of funny because our
Yeah.
Starlink is out, but it's on the roof of the RV. And but it's like Starlink Row right here because there's no
Ooh.
RVs right there. It's
Yeah.
like there's at least 6 Starlinks out right here. There's both. One of the vans has it. I think both of them might,
Yeah.
and a couple of the RVs down the way, and then 2 or 3 down on the other side. And we have them on poles coming off the RVs. It's funny. It's hilarious. There's so many
Ooh.
Starlinks. But I planned for being here like 3 weeks ago
Yeah.
because I knew we were going to be in some less populated areas like Great
Cool.
Basin National Park and
Yeah.
Zion leading over to here. We stopped in Monument Valley for a couple of days on the
Ooh.
way over here, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So I didn't bother trying to move the Starlink into those cells. I knew that we wouldn't be deprioritized because they were less populated areas. But here at the Balloon Festival, I knew there'd be 1,000 RVers bringing their Starlinks, not to mention we're in Albuquerque, like a city. So I moved my
Ooh.
Starlink to this location like 3 weeks ago. So we're getting great
Ah.
numbers.
Oh man. Yeah, that makes me think. Like, because obviously, obviously a lot of these conference venues charge a bajillion bucks for internet. It makes me
Yes.
wonder if Starlink is the sort of thing that someone like, say, you could potentially set up at a conference and suddenly like, we're live streaming.
I doubt it.
Oh, really?
And only because these things always take, I mean, unless you're doing it outside, right?
Ah,
If you're like parked outside or something like that, and then you could set it out because it needs a view of the sky, and you can't be in a
oh,
conference room and set it up on the roof. You don't even have access to it, let alone where would the cord come in. So I don't think it's going to be an answer. Now, maybe a small conference, like I remember the NAA's, the Nevada
yeah.
conference, was in like Ely one year. You might be able to take a north-facing window and just set the Starlink by it, and that would probably work.
Yeah.
Enough to stream anyway. But yeah, it's tough. So I don't know if that's going to work for those types of venues.
Not to get all controversial, but do you think, I mean, people are like starting to drop out of the SAAs. It seems like there's a new controversy every year. And it doesn't seem like the leadership is like is like they asked people like, for suggestions, and then they just don't follow them or don't follow through.
Right.
It's like, do you think there's gonna be a certain point where there's like a tipping point where people just be like, blah? There's like so many other conferences I can go to, regional conferences, or we can set up our own digital native conference where it's just like always like, it's always live streaming or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you what. I am not going to speak necessarily in support of the SAAs, only because I think that type of conference is dead,
Yeah.
or should die. I think, like we talked about earlier, I don't think the ROI is there. I think the carbon footprint is too big. I think just a lot of about what these conferences are, and it's no fault of the SAAs, it's every in-person conference, is flawed, and they're not moving with the times, right? They're not recording everything for people who can't be there. They really should have a smaller venue and then have recorded performances for those that want to still meet live, and then have live events that are meaningful. But other than that, I think the thing we have to remember, when people have those kinds of suggestions, is a big institution like that with 6,000 members and 2,000 to 4,000 people that show up to their conferences, even if it sounds like a vocal group of people, and it's usually the people we hear talking about change at these conferences, they're on Twitter, which a fraction of the people that go to the SAs are on Twitter. I mean, a small fraction.
I mean, look at the age demographic.
Well, yeah, and even fewer are on like Facebook and stuff like that. So we see this as, oh my God, this is such a huge thing, but it's really not. And they have to consider the entire group of people that are going to these conferences, the people that are paying to go to keep this institution alive. And they have to consider all of that. And, it's not being run by, with the exception of Una Schmidt, the current managing director, as she calls. She's not the president. She's like the corporate executive, or whatever, the executive director. I think that's what it's called. She's the person that actually has a paying job to sit there. Like Toby Brimisek was there for like 20 plus years. That's a paying job. And those people aren't typically archaeologists. They're professionals. They're business people that are paid to run a nonprofit organization. Right. And
that sounds so logical.
Aside from her, everyone else, including the president, is typically an archaeologist, right? So they're concerned that you have to imagine they're people. They want this to go well. They want to acknowledge the concerns of people and make this something that people want to go to.
Of course.
So when they don't do that, I wouldn't necessarily put it on them. I would put it on the fact that they're dealing with large numbers. You know what I mean? And they're trying to do the best that they can do.
Well, they have to like fundamentally reassess their mission. Like, is it to present and disseminate research or what? Because like a lot of people, like how many people go to these conferences and literally they don't see, I mean, I haven't seen a single paper at a conference in years. I mean, I see like one or two, like if it's friends, but most of the time you're just going there to like, socialize, which you can literally just do anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. There are certain people that I only see at conferences when I go. Like we just don't. We're not in the same circles, so there is that. What I would rather is that what I've never seen in an archaeology conference is they don't acknowledge that. I mean, for students where they have these student socials and they plan student events, and they have like what is it called, the ethics bowl and stuff like that, where you can where these are all planned student events. But for people who are not students, there's never anything aside from workshops, and workshops are a good thing, but usually you have to go early to get to a workshop, and that's just more time and more money and
limited slots.
And to be honest, and to be honest, the workshop is usually something that could just be done online.
Exactly.
Almost everything could be done online, but if you want to have like leadership classes and specific social networking events where it's like, hey, we're going to, sign up for this because, we can't have 10,000 people in there, but we can have 100 people in here and do these planned things that are really only possible to do well in person. And that's only a few things.
Yeah.
But make sure that you plan those events. And I haven't seen a single conference plan those types of things. One conference that kind of comes close is the SHA. Because the SHA has a thing called the tech room. Yeah. And the tech room is separate from the book room. The book room is all about selling. It's all about selling you something. But the tech room is all about trying out new technologies. And if you want to, if they've got a VR person there, or I've been in the tech room lots of times with WildNote, where we're not selling WildNote, but we have tablets there that you can play with if you want to try it out and you want to, record the room as a site or something like that and see how that goes, or do some form building or something. And then I've even been in there with the Archaeology Podcast Network to talk to people about podcasting and
Yeah.
you know what's the gear you need and you know stuff like that. And that those are hands-on experiences that you can have
Ooh.
in the tech room. The SAA, I've never seen anything like that at the SAA, aside from some of the workshops that they do, which tend to be a little more hands-on as well. But yeah, that's a really cool thing that the SHA does. I wish the SA would do a similar thing, and then lots of more similar things to encourage people to be there for that.
The only thing I've seen that's similar to that is like the poster sessions. But then, you know, the posters are so limited and you got like limited time to present things.
Yeah. That is true. So,
because I mean, it's just such a hassle to get to these conferences. I mean, this is before 2020, and then you're like, and literally most people just look at it as a social event. So, like you were saying, if they just restructured it as a social event and just like, published all their stuff online, it'd just be a lot easier.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. So anyway,
yeah.
Well, it's 11 o'clock my time. We've been going about an hour. Well, we took a little while to get started, but let's maybe start wrapping this up. Before we really do that, I wanted to mention the reason we're doing this on Saturday morning, I mean, is honestly my fault because we were doing this on Sunday afternoons, and I know for the next like month, almost every single one of our Sunday afternoons we're driving. So it just wasn't going to work out. But a lot of times we drive on Saturday too. If we have a longer drive to do, we'll drive on Saturday and Sunday. But doing this as like a Saturday morning show is a lot more conducive to my schedule and Richie's as well. And Richie's able to accommodate that, and we're able to, do more of these. The last few, I've had to text Richie like an hour before because I didn't know if we were going to make it in time and be like, hey, sorry, we got to cancel because I'm still driving and we're not going to get set up in time. So that's the other thing with like Starlink. Even if we're going to get there like a half an hour before to do the thing, well, first off, it takes a while to set this RV up if we're going to be there for a little while. And then one of the first things we do is usually we put Starlink out and we get it to start acquiring, but it doesn't really have full capability to do back and forth like this. You could probably stream on the download speeds if you're just going to turn the TV on right away. Yeah. But to have full back and forth capability, because I've done this, we've tried to get on a call before immediately after setting up the Starlink, and the upload speeds just aren't there. It hasn't fully acquired the satellites it needs to acquire. And that's something to note if you have Starlink. Like I said, you can set it up and start surfing the internet pretty much right away. Yeah. But to do this high upload download bandwidth on a call, it's tough. So yeah.
And the best part is that now that the APN's on a slight break, this is normally the CRM ARC podcast recording time, isn't it?
No. Well, no, we do it on Sunday mornings.
Oh dear. Oh,
that's why this isn't on Sunday morning.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that's why I suggested Saturday morning. So tomorrow morning we're recording CRM ARC, and we do that at 8:30 Pacific time. So that's 9:30 for me right now, and that'll be 11:30 when I get to the East Coast. So yeah.
I mean, not to bring it, bring it up or make it too controversial, but is tomorrow going to be like the apology show, or?
I would imagine that we will start by talking about what happened a little bit, and then we'll move on to a topic, because to be honest, this will all blow over. It was one topic. We have a 10-year history coming on of really good shows, and I get emails from people all the time saying how much we either helped them in their current career, or we got them back into CRM because they were out for a while, or they were considering a career and they listened to our shows and decided to go to school. I've had people tell me that they decided to apply and go to college because they listened to an episode of the CRM ARC podcast. Ooh. So I call that as a win. And if one person who's not even really in CRM has an issue with something we had to say, so yeah, I don't care. I really don't, because we're helping so many thousands of people, and everybody has their own opinions. And I do appreciate those opinions, and I appreciate people, I podcast, if whether it's this show or TAS or the CRM ARC podcast, one of our goals is to not only put out information, but to start conversations, to get people talking. And sometimes, in fact, lots of times, they're not going to agree with us. Yeah. And that's perfectly fine with me. But I would say, respect the fact that there's real human beings behind these episodes with real careers, real opinions, real experiences, and disagree with us as much as you want, but try to do it in a professional way.
And more importantly, real archaeologists who actually, while
Yeah.
you guys know, we all know what we're talking about, we don't know everything, you
Mm.
know.
Oh, and this happened. I never saw this as so bad as when I moved to Reno,
Yeah.
but there were a lot of people because the CRM firms in Reno, and I'm sure other places, but this is my experience out there. We worked with so many people who had never worked anywhere else.
Exactly.
And they get in with these companies and they never worked anywhere, and they're floored by the fact that, oh my God, you can do CRM work in different ways in different parts of the country. There isn't one way to do everything. And I have a feeling the people who were, having an issue with what we said on the show, that was at odds with their experiences.
Yeah.
And since their experiences are the only thing that they know, then, they thought that what we were saying was technically wrong, when maybe it was just somebody else's experiences and how they dealt with stuff, whether it's right or wrong was inconsequential. It was somebody giving their opinions and their experiences.
Yeah.
So,
and more importantly, because, obviously we're in, we all know all about the podcast where people are basically just making it up and kind of like trying to be Joe Rogan light or Alex Jones light, and like they don't know what they're talking about, but if you just
they're
say
trying
it
for controversy.
Yeah. And you guys were just like trying to put out the information you had, and then with the people you could get, because like like you said, you guys all have day jobs, so you can't just like get this person or that person or have like the most well-rounded panel every week.
I have never turned a guest away.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to the show and they say, I want to come on your show and talk about this, in 10, 12 years of podcasting, I've never turned somebody away from that.
Yeah.
So, but here's the little secret. It's like pulling teeth to get people to come on any podcast. They just don't want to do it, whether they're nervous about speaking or something, or they have professional considerations and they think it'll come back negatively on them. It doesn't, the point is, it's really hard to get guests.
Especially when you don't
on
pay.
The same token. Well, of course. And who pays for guests, right? We're not Joe Rogan, right? So, I don't pay people to come on a free podcast.
Yeah.
So, that just, the budget's not there. Now, if we want to get some high quality guests and that we need to pay for, then I need, everybody that listens to all of our podcasts to go become a member. So, you can help support us.
Or you can start selling nutritional supplements, and like,
Oh my God. Yeah. Blue Apron. Yeah. Well, hey, here's a little update on the APN. So 3 of our shows are actually hosted on the Zencastr platform now. And that's been for the last few months. No, we've been hosted on Megaphone since April of 2019 because Megaphone has dynamic ad insertion. Well, Megaphone was bought by Spotify earlier this year. And, some things are kind of changing and it's more to Spotify's benefit. And I've had a little bit of a partnership with Zencastr. If you've heard any APN show in the last few months this year, you've heard an ad for Zencastr. That's because I'm working directly with them. I've talked to the owner and founder of Zencastr many times over the last 9 months. And it's a small company and they're really doing some big things though. And they have some really cool stuff coming out in the next month that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about yet, but it will allow us to basically move the rest of the shows to the Zencastr platform. Ooh. So while that doesn't necessarily mean anything for listeners, it does mean for us that, they are going to be partnering advertisers with us. So we can still go out and find our own advertisers, but we'll have to do that less and less as their service comes up, because they will be bringing advertisers that they think, will fit our platform, and they're kind of being the intermediary on that. Now, we of course have to give them a cut of the advertising for that because they're not doing it for free. Yeah. But currently we don't have anybody doing that. So I'm more than happy to give them a percentage to bring that onto the show. Now, that being said, I'd love to have no advertisements at all on the show and be completely listener supported, but we would need probably 1,000 more listeners before that's possible. 1,000 more paid listeners before that's possible. Just looking at the numbers, if we stay at $7.99 a month, even for people who did the 25% off for going annual, we would need easily 1,000 more to afford to not have advertising. And at probably 1,500 to 2,000. I mean, at least I could probably quit everything else I'm doing and do the APN full time. And then around 3,000 listeners, paid listeners, we can start probably getting a couple more positions. And the reality is I wouldn't be the first employee, right? I would have a full-time editor, a professional full-time editor, because that's going to cost about $2,500 to $3,000 a month for that person. and we would need some solid recurring income for that. I can't really count on advertising income for that unless it's consistent.
True.
Membership income is more consistent.
But
So
so does that mean there's no more Madison? Was it Madison?
it was Madison, yeah, and she basically got a new job, her full-time job earlier this year, and just had to focus on that. Yeah. So she stepped away from doing some of our stuff. She was doing a good job. She put together a lot of really good materials for us and reached out to a lot of people. But she had to move on from that, so to speak, and she's doing good things in Colorado now. So
and speaking of which, I was listening to I forget which feed it was on, but I was listening to one of your Archaeotech reruns and was reminded that it's also very difficult for you guys to keep producers if you can't pay anyone.
Producers, volunteer editors, people just ghost us without question,
Always.
without warning too, without saying anything. Yeah, and that's, I'm used to that because I'm in Civil Air Patrol too, and we get used to that too. We get people showing up for first few meetings and then literally never hear from them again. And then some of them just keep paying their dues every year. It's only like $60, but they keep paying their dues every year to be part of the CAP. But they literally go to no events. They don't do any training. They don't advance. They don't progress. They don't call us. They don't respond to any emails.
Ooh, maybe they just want to support you guys through money.
I mean, maybe. And maybe we should have some like volunteer dues or something like that. Let's just see if they stick around. It's like, hey, you want to volunteer and get some experience, then pay us for that. It's $20 a month to be a volunteer with the APN now.
Because
I don't think that would work.
Because here in Reno, like I'm a member of the Reno Bike Collective, even though obviously I do all my own bike mechanic stuff here at home.
Yeah. Well, it's good to support stuff like that, if you're into it. So
although
you're probably just part of it, so you can keep an eye out for vintage bikes that come by and you can just snag them.
Oh, that too. But also, oh my God, it's interesting, not to go off on a tangent since we should probably end soon, but it's interesting the amount of people who believe honestly that bicycles do not belong anywhere and should just be like on specific bike paths in parks. And the Reno Bike Collective actually got a letter to that effect at some point and posted it on their social media feed. They're like, yeah, some dude was like riding recklessly, and I don't believe bicycles should be on the road and they should just be in park. It's like,
yeah, that's short-sighted. Get rid of all the cars and make it all bicycles.
Of course.
And self-driving cars.
It's kind of like I don't know if you've seen this on your social media feeds, but REI is like asking for support for like a 30% tax rebate, I think, or tax credit on e-bikes. And the pushback they're getting on that from people who are like, no, just like, from people who just like either think that bicycles should just be confined to like parks or whatever, is like incredible. Kind of like the same pushback you see from people who are like, people who would rather park their diesel pickup truck at like, a Tesla supercharger and like block as many as they can.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy and stupid.
Exactly. Oh my God. One more thing. Like I follow some EV forums, some EV stuff on like Facebook and Instagram. And like one person was pointing out that someone actually did not only just park their diesel pickup truck in front of an EV supercharger, they also left it running so they could do maximum environmental damage.
Nice. That sounds about right. Yeah. So
anyway,
wow.
Like, that's a great super uplifting tone to end on.
Well, one thing I'll end on here, we've been trying to get a diesel RV, partly because diesel gets better gas mileage and we're already getting that in this thing, but also it's just more powerful from an RV standpoint. We can go up hills faster than 20 miles an hour. We now have a 10,000 pound towing capacity, but one of the things that comes along with this is we have a DEF tank now, the diesel exhaust fluid.
Oh yeah.
And so I haven't had to fill that yet because it was like 3/4 of the way full when we got the RV, and we've put about $1,000 in gas in it since we bought it because we've been doing a lot of driving.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a lot, and it is, but when we get to like North Carolina, we're going to be sitting for like a month and a half. So, no gas used there. It all kind of evens out, but either way, I'm going to have to fill the DEF tank in probably the next week or so. And it's, I actually talked to a guy at an RV park who was near us or something. We were just chatting, and like you do at RV parks. And he said he specifically searched for the RV he had because it was a 2007
Yeah.
or 2008 year. And that was before they started requiring DEF tanks on those. And he's like, I just didn't want to deal with that. And I was like, I didn't say this to him, but I was thinking, what, you didn't want to deal with, like, cleaning up your exhaust and making it better for the environment? Like, what's wrong with you?
Like, a lot of people are like, that's just all a conspiracy. And more importantly, oh my God, I was on a project in Needles, and these they were the crew was talking about, like, why we have lights and 24-hour security when we were working there, and they were relaying a story of how someone drove up to it one of their job sites that didn't have 24-hour security, and like they drove up to their one of the pieces of equipment, one of the ones with the big giant diesel tank, and they started pumping out what they thought was diesel but was actually their DEF tank. And this is like a super old diesel Dodge, so they were so there was no DEF tank in that one, so they were literally just pumping in there. And then they oh my God, this is such a like meth country story, but basically they go around the corner, like around the mountain range, and obviously the DEF basically screws up their engine, so they basically get out of the truck and start walking. And then when they come back, when they come back just in time to be arrested by the cops, someone has already stripped their truck.
Oh, jeez. Sounds about right for that area.
So it's kind of like the big, it's kind of like the fish being eaten by the bigger fish story, except with with stealing.
Yeah, totally. My God, jeez. All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and end it there. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I think we're going to be in. We'll either be in Carlsbad or we'll be starting to leave that day. I'm not really sure. Next week when we do this show. So, but we're going to try to stick with Saturday mornings, 9 Pacific, and then whatever time zone I'm in, 10, 11, or 12. So, but 9 Pacific. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, because I've been thinking about the show. Are we gonna expect a I always forget which host it is. Are we gonna expect a Life in Ruins kind of like, crossover sort of like RV slash bush RV tour or whatever they call those things?
Yeah, we probably should. I don't know how we relate that to archaeology though. But David Ian Howe, follow him on Instagram at Ethnocynology, or I think he's just David Ian Howe on his personal account. But he doesn't post a lot of stuff with his little converted schoolie. He had a whole Instagram feed for it.
Oh, really?
But I think he either took it down or maybe he had a hashtag, because I couldn't find it. I was actually looking for it not too long ago to see if he was posting updates, because we were going to cross paths at some point, but then he ended up doing something else, and I don't think we are anymore. But anyway, I don't know if that's there, but follow him. But he's as far as I know, the only other person in the Archaeology Podcast Network that is living full time in a RV, and it's a really nice converted school bus. Yeah, it looks really good inside. So,
cool.
And he's got a platform on top of his that he can sit on there easily. He can go up there. It's like a deck.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wait,
really
why don't you guys have that?
So. We could, we have a ladder off the back of this one now, so we can get up to the roof pretty easily. But that kind of thing has to be secured in the right anchor points, so the weight's distributed evenly. Because you can't just put a lot of weight at any point you want on the roof of this thing. They're pretty strong, but if you're going to put a deck up there, you got to make sure that weight is evenly distributed, so it doesn't punch through your ceiling. So it's kind of got to be professionally done.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. That's actually probably pretty good.
I don't think it's going to happen. It is. I think so. So, well, anyway, good talking to you, Richie. And thanks, Amy, for coming on. If you're watching the end of this, because she said she might catch the end of this later on.
And thank you, everyone who tuned in.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can keep the Saturday morning show going. You can watch this with your cartoons and cereal.
Knock on wood.
All right.
All right.
See you later, everybody.
Yeah.